But yeah, this fight, man, I know a little bit about these fighters. I'm not like a big fan of them, and I don't keep up that much with the lighter weight divisions. But I should, because the lighter weight divisions, they always show a little bit more skill, in my opinion, from my experience. They always show a little bit more skill than the the higher weight classes. In fact, one could say that the higher you go, the less skills you require, because you can make up for it with physicality, and that's why the higher you go up in weight classes in the heavyweight division, you get a little bit less skill, um, and a lot more knockdowns. But in the lower weight classes, since they don't weigh that much, the punches they're not packing that much of a punch, so the fights go for longer. You see a lot more boxing prowess or techniques and even different styles working better in the lighter weight divisions. So it's definitely recommended if you want to learn, you know, a lot of things in boxing. I would recommend the lower weight classes. You're gonna see a lot of moves that you haven't seen in a while in boxing. Um, that's just my opinion, guys. I'm pretty sure that other people understand what I'm talking about. But getting back to the subject at hand, guys. Um, so Estrada, I remember him. El Gallito Estrada, I remember him from the Chocolatito fights that he had. I don't remember how many he had, but I do know that the last one was very close. In fact, some people think Chocolatito won, but Estrada got the nod. Um, so now that's the one I remember. The other ones I don't remember that much. So in that fight, I remember Estrada having a lot of good things happening in that fight, skill wise. Things that show off the things he could do. Um, and a lot of that was being able to counter on the back foot, which is, you know, it's hard to do. But there are certain type of fighters that they could only do that, which is bad. Now Estrada didn't really show that he could only do that, but he was in that particular fight, he was on the back foot versus Chocolatito, and he was mainly on the back foot, and he was doing some effective um, fighting on the back foot. Okay. The problem was that towards the later rounds, he started fading away, and um, and you began to see way more moving backwards and not enough moving laterally. So that means that this you could tell patterns like this if this happens a lot. That means that Estrada's go to thing to do is to retreat. When he gets tired. So when people get tired, they revert back to their natural essence. When they're in trouble, their true nature comes out. Now, some people, when they get hurt, they punch more and they become brawlers. Alexander Usyk is one of those guys where you see him get hurt to the body, and instead of becoming this defensive guy, and running away, he actually steps back a little bit. He takes a breath and he goes in, and he just goes in. Right, he just starts throwing flurries, da, 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 da. And he's always successful. Which is a dangerous thing to do if you think about it. But I guess that's why they call him the cat, because cats, when you know what they say about cornered cats. But getting back to these guys, um, so so yeah, that's what I noticed about Estrada, right? And the thing about Bam Bam when it comes to his energy output, is that Bam Rodriguez, um, he's a little bit of the opposite. He likes moving forward and he likes cutting off the ring. and limiting his opponents to the corners mainly. Um, and he likes to run them into shots in their exits. Um, so that's a very dangerous fighter for someone like Estrada, you know, because he's expecting you to do all the running because usually Bam, the other thing about Bam is that his energy output gets higher as the rounds go on. So the thing about fighters, one of the things that you have to take into consideration when you're going to predict a fight is their energy output. Are they, um, are they a falcon, right? And a falcon is someone who starts off high with a high energy output, but then it takes a big dive in the later rounds, and he doesn't necessarily do that well in the later rounds. And a good example of that is Canelo. Another good example of that is the big Asian guy. I forgot Zhilei Zhang. Even Mike Tyson. So Mike Tyson was notoriously, known for if the fight would go too long, he was in trouble in the later rounds. So yeah, these guys usually lose against guys that know how to control the pace and know how to make them chase for a little bit, but then they put a big stop on them. So the thing about these style of guys, is that they have to get the fight done early, right? Or fight in spurts. Right. So the good way that Canelo does it is he fights in spurts, right? And Canelo manages his conditioning in that way. Someone like Mike Tyson will get out there and do everything perfect for 4 rounds, and he will take you out in about 4 rounds most of the time. Then you have the other option, which Estrada does, is that he fights on the back foot and he fights in spurts. And he makes you decide, where you want to get hit. Or it could just be that he fought like that with Chocolatito, which he's gonna have a problem with Bam Bam if that's the case. Um, Now let's talk a little bit about Bam, and let's just talk about the energy levels. So some people they start off normal, and they stay normal. They can maintain a normal pace. A good example of that is Floyd Mayweather, right? And then you have someone that starts off kind of low, and as the fight progresses, his energy output is higher, and that's what we have. Bam Bam. Bam Bam is that guy, that type of fighter. Now, these type of fighters are not that common, because there's a lot of things that go into a fighter like this. One of it is he's a good, what was the word? It's a word called, he's a thinker. So most of the time, the guys that start off slow and they pick up the pace as the rounds go on, usually those guys are setting you up for shots. So they're really, looking at what you're doing. They're looking at the way you flinch. A lot of the times, that's the case. I don't know if that's the case with Bam Bam, but if he is a pressure fighter, most of the times those guys are doing that. They're looking where you're going. They're looking where you're flinching and stuff like that. So that's what we're dealing with here, guys. We're dealing with a guy whose energy output starts off a little low and then picks up as the rounds go on. And another one in Estrada who seems to fade halfway through the fight. So with that being the case, and you add that to the fact that Bam is a younger man than Estrada. Estrada, some people believe he's on his way out. I think it's been maybe a year or more since he's fought last. So that's also gonna um, come into play. So, guys, I think this one is easy to predict. I think for sure Bam is going to win the fight. Now, we're going to see, right? Because we're talking about the last fights, right? That we've seen. Now, Estrada in the last fight, he showed just that. What I told you, that he picks it up in the later rounds and he's able to get it knocked down later in the fight. But there is things that Bam does wrong. There's a lot of technical, especially in his feet. Um, there's a lot of bad technical things that he does. But I feel like his strengths are in strategic and strategy. That's where his strength is at. Um, and his offensive prowess. Okay, with Estrada, it's going to be an interesting fight because Estrada thrives, Gallito thrives on catching people off guard and really kind of styling on his opponents. Um, but the thing is about Estrada is that number one, he's old, but also he gets caught. So he's good, but he's not good consistently enough. And not even good. I could say great because some of the stuff he does in there, like catching you on the way inside as he's moving backwards, a lot of that stuff is not easy to do. A lot of the counters that he does is not easy to do either. It's high level boxing, but the thing about that I've noticed about Gallito Estrada is that um, that stuff, that stuff that he does is not as consistent as someone like Bam Bam or Bam Rios. I mean Rodriguez. Um, his what he's doing is more consistent. You know, and it seems like it's a lot more simpler, which it kind of is. And it's like, for example, how can I explain this? Bam has the basics down to a T and more consistently. And Estrada has greatness, but it comes in spurts. It's not as consistent. Um, but the thing is, within a fight, the consistent guy is always going to win over someone who's just waiting to style on you every once in a while. Um, so I think everything is just pointing to Bam winning. So that's what I'm going to pick, guys. So there you go. That's my pick. Bam is going to win the fight. But we'll see, guys, because the other thing, like I said, anything can happen in boxing, and Estrada is not. He's not an easy guy to beat. Okay, he's very hard to beat um, because when he's moving back, you think he's not doing stuff, but he is doing stuff. And sometimes, even when he's losing, um, he catches the other guy with something on the way in. A lot of times that people don't notice. I notice. There's certain things that the other fighter will do, even if he's not knocked down or he's not wobbled. There's certain things that the other fighter will do that tells me, yeah, he got hurt. Sometimes they'll step to the side. Sometimes they'll take one step back. Sometimes they'll look at the opponent kind of funny. Those little details sometimes mean more than you think. Especially like if they change their attitude. Like for example, Chocolatito, a lot of times he would be throwing a flurry at Estrada, and then Estrada will catch him with little something at the solarplex, like pop, and it would look like nothing, and then he would back up, and Chocolatito would just kind of stand there and think a little. The reason he's thinking a little is because he got hurt. Especially someone like Chocolatito. Okay, very aggressive fighter. He likes to come forward, and maintain that pressure. If someone like that takes a small step back, it's a good sign because he's out of his comfort zone, right? And if he were smart, right when he's thinking, you jump in at him, right when he's thinking. Why? Because now you know what you're gonna do next time to make him think again. and each time he thinks, boom, you pop him, and then you move again. But you gotta be you gotta be aware. You gotta catch his tail. You know, it's kind of like poker. So you do something, and he keeps falling for it. You don't immediately attack him there. You go do something else, right? And act like you didn't catch his tail, right? And then you start to, I don't know if you guys have seen this movie called I forgot the reindeer games or something. No, the Rundown. I think it's the Rundown, and it's a movie about poker players, clandestine poker players, and and yeah, towards the end there's this Russian guy who's really good at poker, and he has his own clandestine playing area, and he challenges him or whatever, the main character, and he finds out his tell, and his tell is to act like he doesn't care and grab a cookie and eat it in a weird way, like he's licking pussy or something. It was weird. Um, and one of my favorite actors is the Russian, by the way. He's damn, I keep forgetting, Malkovich, John Malkovich. John Malkovich is, one of the best characters in movies. Like every time he's in a movie, I wanna watch it just because he's so like weird. I don't know. He's just John Malkovich. um, but anyways, he finds out his tale, and then he acts like he doesn't know it. Right? Okay, and then he comes back to it, and every time he tells on himself, he he calls his cards. But anyways, um, that's the same thing you're doing in boxing, pretty much. Not everybody's playing like that, by the way. Some people are just doing their own thing. They don't really care about tells or anything like that. And you really can't be looking for tells in boxing. Okay, you're not passively, anyways. You have to look for him aggressively or with movement. Why? Because if you're looking at it silent, if you're looking at it static or not moving, um, that's chances you're giving him to attack you. So you got to be at least jabbing and looking, jabbing, looking. Boom, bah. So you jab, stick, hook, move, look. That's the pattern. Right? Jab, stick, hook, move, look. Right? And then every time you look, you just take a little bit, and then eventually you're gonna find something. And if you're lucky, you're gonna find like 3 or 4 things, and just continue to pot shot him during the whole fight. But anyways, I don't even know why I'm talking about this stuff. Well, it's boxing related, um, but what I'm saying is, I think Estrada's one of these guys. Okay, the thing is, will he find something? Number one. And number two, will he have the energy to even do something about it? Because sometimes you know what to do, but you just can't do it because you don't have enough gas in the tank.